So welcome to our Spinning Your Web Richmond is Virginia for Virginians webinar. We're so excited to be here with you tonight. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Lauren Bennett and I'm an admission representative in our office. I represent Richmond, Virginia, the greater Richmond area, as well as Central Virginia and Southwest Virginia. I'm lucky enough to have my colleague Rachel, who will introduce herself in just a moment, as well as an alum, Maggie Johnson. So Rachel and Maggie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Evening, everyone. Like Lauren said, my name is Rachel Risto, and I also work in the Office of Admission. And I'm one of the Virginia recruiters as well. And I am lucky enough to return to my homeland, the Tidewater area of Virginia. So that would be the peninsula and the beach area, as well as the northern neck. So happy to see you all here today and excited to tell you a little bit more about Richmond.
Hey everyone, I'm Maggie Johnson. It's so great to be here. I am a 2018 alumna, and I also went to high school in Virginia. So I am a Virginia grown up, Richmond grad, and I actually now work at the university as well in the alumni office. So that's pretty new, and I'm so excited to be home in Virginia and in Richmond, and so excited to share a little bit and moderate tonight's panel for y'all.
All right, well, just to give a quick overview of what tonight will look like, we will transition into a panel, which Maggie will be moderating for us, and we have a few current spiders who are going to be answering questions from you all. We do ask that you put the questions in the Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Rachel and I will also be in there answering any questions that you guys might have that we can help answer. After the panel, we'll then transition and talk a little bit about admission and aid at Richmond, specifically to Virginians, but also just a broad overview as well. So let's go ahead and dive in.
So yeah, we'll jump into some questions and get to know our panelists. Just a quick reminder, if y'all have any questions at any point, if you hear something a panelist says and you want to ask specifically about that, go ahead and pop that in the Q&A. But I'm going to let our lovely panelists introduce themselves. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in first.
I can go ahead and start, but hi everyone, my name is Bailey. I am currently a junior here at U of R. I'm majoring in health studies on the pre-physical therapy track, and I'm also minoring in Latin American, Latino, and Iberian studies. On campus, I'm also involved in some clubs, some volunteering, and also the new club badminton team. So that's just a little about me. But I'm also from Richmond, Virginia. I think I forgot to mention that.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Acacia. I'm also a junior here at the University of Richmond. I'm from Falls Church, Virginia, so Northern Virginia. I am a double major in math and economics with a concentration in data science, and on campus, I'm also an orientation advisor and a tutor for our Academic Skills Center.
All right, and then bringing it up at the end, my name is Logan Jones-Wilkins. I'm also a junior. You got 3 juniors. But I am from Charlottesville in Stanton, Virginia, originally. So kind of balancing out the triangle of Virginia in a way. And I'm studying PPL, so politics, philosophy, econ, and law with political science concentration and also journalism. So that's a little about me. I'm also an intern in the Office of Admission. So I do the information sessions and I'm happy to be here as well.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. So while people are thinking of some questions, and I see we already have some, but to kick us off, would love for each of you to talk a little bit about, as a Virginian, what stuck out about you about Richmond when you were looking at colleges?
All right, I guess I'll go. I think we need to have an order. So I guess I'll tee out first. So I have a pretty roundabout way of getting to Richmond. I actually had these big dreams of going far away for college. But towards the end of my search, I kind of came back to Virginia and realized I really liked it here more than I had thought I did at the beginning. And Richmond was the last school I visited out of 26. So it took me a while to kind of turn back towards home. But the city was great. It was a kind of new place for me to explore in the state. The programs were awesome. The finances worked out better than actually state schools for me. So it was kind of a no-brainer that it was like hiding right under my nose the whole time, and was something that I'm really happy to have found in my roundabout way.
Something that stuck out to me, oh, sorry, Acacia, if I cut you off.
You got it.
But something that really stuck out to me about Richmond or about U of R in general is just how incredibly personalized your experience is as a Richmond student. Because, for example, I've been to one of my professor's house as a Where is Cuba class that I took, and we cooked and ate Cuban food. We learned to salsa dance and play conga drums. I also had a question about housing, so I could walk right into the housing office without an appointment and talk to someone that day, actually within like 5 minutes of going into the office. So I'd say that you really feel supported within the Richmond community, no matter what space you find yourself in on campus, whether that's in the classroom, in a club or a sport or something like that, or just if you have a logistical question, or if you're in the dining hall, you really feel supported and like you're truly valued as a student, which I think is something really special about Richmond.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to echo a lot of what Logan said, where I was looking all over when I was first looking for colleges, and I didn't look at a single Virginia college until about halfway through my process and realized, wait, like I want to be near DC, and it just so happens that I live already near DC, but that doesn't mean I can't go to college in Virginia. And so I decided to come to Richmond because I really wanted to stay on the East Coast and actually be near, I want to go into like economics and government. And so I decided that I could still stay in Virginia, even though I was already from here. It didn't like, I was still going to get really new experiences, even being close to home. I mean, because my parents are always joking, they're never going to come visit me because I-95 is nearly impassable. Like, they're like, I know you're only an hour away, but we're not going to just like drop by all the time. So I realized that Richmond was really the place for me, and it didn't really matter that I was so close to home. I'm still getting my own experiences, even just an hour away.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Bailey, you touched on this a little bit already, but would love for you guys to share maybe one or two or however many experiences that you really think makes Richmond unique. So I don't know if Bailey, you either want to like elaborate, or if someone else, Logan, you unmuted, so you can go.
All right, we'll just keep the order going. So it'll be me, Bailey, Case, just to keep things smooth. Because Zoom, you know, we're really getting the Zoom blues today. But I would say for me, one of those experiences that stands out as really Richmond would be kind of this unorthodox one that happened a couple days ago or weeks ago in the admissions office. One of our amazing admission counselors sort of came to the front desk where I was working and was like, hey, you ride bikes, don't you? And I do ride bikes. I ride bikes a lot. And he kind of talked about how he remembered that from the whole admission process. And we went on and sort of chatting about how he was a graduate of the university and how he really appreciated his time here. And we reflected on how the school has changed or stayed the same since he was a member of the student body. And it was just kind of this insightful experience for me that kind of confirmed what I believed myself, that it is a special place that I'm going to hold on to. And it's a place that really, I think, treats its students kindly and treats its students well, to the point where they want to come back and use their own education, their own investment in Richmond by paying it back directly through working at the university. And not only was that like a kind of a touching moment for me and feeling valued as a student here at the institution, but it also was a motivating thing for me to continue to work with the institution, continue to kind of do these things right now. And it was something that really made me proud to be a student here at the university in a way that I think could connect to his experience. And we all were sort of this big, happy family. And I think that little moment really hit that point home.
Excuse me. I did sort of touch base on this earlier, but I think something that is unique to Richmond and really special about the Richmond experience is the faculty-student relationships that you can develop. So I didn't expect when coming to college that I would have professors that became my friends or that I got to know really well. But I like to use my first year chemistry professor as an example. I thought that college chemistry would be like my high school chem experience. So I thought it would be really challenging and not my favorite thing. It was actually one of my favorite classes that I've taken here. My professor, Dr. Leopold, taught us chemical reactions in terms of dance moves and card tricks and Harry Styles references, which I didn't know you could relate chemistry to pop music, but somehow he made that work. And he would also meet with us from about 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. the nights before our quizzes, tests, and exams. That's outside of his normal office hours that he already had availability for. So you really do feel like the professors care about you and are supporting you both within their classroom setting and beyond. And that's something that I feel is really special about Richmond.
I was also going to talk about the professors and the amazing experiences I've had, but I feel like Bailey covered that part of Richmond, so I will sadly not talk about my professors, even though I love them all dearly. Well, I will. I'll talk about my one professor who I did research with, actually my very first year of college here. So I came to college not thinking that research would really be something for me because I wasn't majoring in a science field. And when you think of research, I often think of the sciences, but my political science professor, my very first semester, came up to me one day and she was like, hey, I know that you're majoring in math as well, and you really seem like you were really interested in doing research in the political science field, and I just got an NSF grant and I need researchers, and do you want a job? And like, she just stopped me in the middle of like the quad, in the middle of all of our academic buildings, and was like, do you want a job? And I was like, okay. So there's just, because we're such a small school and because we're all undergrads, these professors are really looking for undergrads to do research with them. And I was working on an NSF funded project my very first year of college. And I don't think that would happen at a lot of different places. And that was really awesome.
Excellent. Thank you guys. I love hearing your guys' perspective about all the really cool professors. Because I also had a really similar experience when I was at Richmond. So Keisha, you touched on this a little bit already, but would love for you guys to talk a little bit about what it's like going to college close to home, close-ish to home. Like you said, 95 can be really terrible. So what's that experience been like for you guys?
Well, my parents made the questionable decision to leave Virginia immediately after I graduated high school. So I have not been close to home. And honestly, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that I have to drive all the way to Pennsylvania to see my parents. But I think that has kind of made it even better that I'm here, because I can still go to my home area. I can see my old sites. And it's great to feel like you're kind of on vacation in your old hometown. I mean, I'm sure the other two panelists might not feel as vacation-y going back to their parents, but for me, it's great. I get to go back. I get to go see the old restaurants I knew, like I am trying it for the first time in some ways. I get to go hike in the Blue Ridge, and it's a treat instead of what I would just normally do. So in that way, I think it's been great, even though I don't have the advantage of a home cooked meal anymore, because my parents made the terrible, terrible choice of leaving Virginia.
Richmond's campus is closer to my house than my high school was, so I stayed incredibly close to home. And I'll be honest, when I was coming to Richmond before I started my first year, I was a little worried that all of my peers and classmates would be getting to know a new city and sort of learning this new environment that I had been in my whole life. So I was worried that I would feel a little stuck in the same place that I've been. But what I found is really incredible about being from Richmond or being from the greater Commonwealth area and going to U of R is that you find places all the time that you never knew were here. So I've been to restaurants or different boutiques or places to hike by the river downtown that have been in the city I've lived in my entire life, but I just hadn't discovered yet. So I think that's something really great about staying close to home, is you do have that home cooked meal that Logan mentioned earlier if you do want to go home and grab that, but you're also learning more about somewhere you're relatively familiar with all the time, which is really fun.
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I don't have like my parents just dropping in all the time, or like my sister coming down every weekend, but it is nice to be close to home and that they can do that when you need them or when you want to see them. And one of the best things I've found is that because I'm so close to home, it's really easy to go home on like a different weekend, so that like this year I stayed here for fall break and was able to experience the fall break in Richmond. I was able to go to the Richmond Folk Festival, and I was able to experience the different parts of Richmond that I wouldn't have when I'm stressed with schoolwork during the school year. And I was able to stay here over fall break and not miss my family as much because I'd gone home the weekend before. And so it gives you a little more flexibility on when you want to go home, so that you're able to sometimes stay over those breaks and experience more of Richmond during those times as well, which I've really liked.
Thank you, guys. So we have a question from one of our attendees, Andrea. What are your plans and goals after graduation? Y'all are juniors, so that's starting to be on your radar. And how did your experience at UR contribute to those goals?
So I would really like to go into international reporting. If you guys can't tell, there's maps all around me. I'm a big fan of traveling. I'm a big fan of storytelling. And that's something that's really motivated me. And through the Richmond Guarantee, I actually was able to get some sort of firsthand international reporting experience in Ecuador this summer on an individual grant to do a freelance project looking at road infrastructure and the politics surrounding it. And that was all funded through the Richmond Guarantee. So I went down to Ecuador for a month, was able to use cycling, rode my bike around for about 1,500 miles, and am in the process of developing a story from it, which has been great. Actually, my first story will come out in the winter edition of the UR magazine. So not only do I have the funding for it, but I also have a good sort of first place to publish my story here on the campus publication. So for me, it's been such an eye-opening experience and such a great way of sort of practicing what I want to do in a low stakes environment here at the university.
My plan for after my undergraduate time is to apply to physical therapy schools and sort of pursue that as my future profession. I'm thinking of specializing in pediatrics or sports medicine, not really sure there yet. But in terms of how the university has helped me find this path, first of all, I didn't even know I wanted to do physical therapy. So by talking to my pre-health advisor, Dr. John Vaughn, he helped me make a schedule semester by semester, class by class, find shadowing and internship and observational opportunities in the greater Richmond area. And also he's helping me prepare for my GRE that I'll be taking this summer. So especially if you're a pre-health student, but this applies all throughout the board, I'm sure you have a lot of support in figuring out what it is you want to do, whether that's with the help of your advisor, a professor, or the Office of Career Services, and then B, how you're going to get there. So creating that plan and having those steps so that uncertainty is a little less daunting.
So I will say that I have a little more of that uncertainty than the other two on this call. So like I said, I'm a math econ major, and I'm hoping to do something with my math econ degree after college to help education policy. So I have been working at a daycare the past couple summers, and honestly thought about like becoming a daycare teacher, but decided that I also wanted to use my math econ degree in some way. And so I've been working with a professor in the econ department who does education research and looks at kind of the economics behind education and access to public daycare and stuff like that. And so he's really helped me kind of shape what I want to do, although I haven't exactly found out like how I'll do it yet, but he's been really helpful. And then I also just want to highlight the math econ department as a whole is a really interdisciplinary department that is pretty unique to the University of Richmond. So it's not like it's not a math and an econ major, it's actually one major in itself, and it's really focused on how you can combine kind of your math skills and your econ skills. And so it's been a really, really good major for me in helping figure out what I want to do after college. A lot of the classes are really focused on more applications of stuff that you will be able to do like in your day-to-day life going out after college. And so a lot of the professors have been really helpful there.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Courtney would love to know kind of your guys' experience and opinions about diversity of opinions on campus. Like, do you feel like Richmond encourages discourse and dialogue? Do you guys have experience with that? I know we're living in a time where there's a lot of kind of craziness flying around. So I guess how does being on campus affect that and affect your experiences?
I think it does a pretty good job of providing opportunities for reasonable debate. I like to, this is a great question. I think it's one that I've seen a couple times. For me, a great example of how discourse is sort of formally handled at the university was I had a class on money, politics, and prison. So this is obviously a hot button issue. And the professor was like, look, you guys, there might be some fundamental disagreements on this issue. Some people might think prisons are terrible. Other people might think they're appropriate. Let's just start by answering this question. And let's say, for the sake of arguing, prisons are something that is a negative to society. Now you can disagree with this premise, but for our class, we're accepting that. How do we move forward? And from there, I think that base and that sort of basic idea that, hey, let's all just come together and accept this premise and try to grow from it. We were able to have this really, really nuanced debate where people who may be traditionally conservative, traditionally liberal, were having to kind of put themselves in different positions and sort of approach the issue from a really proactive standpoint and not such a basic sort of partisan squabbling standpoint. And that allowed for people to sort of not be entrenched in this sort of kind of tribalist team ethos of politics that sometimes emerges, and kind of remove themselves from that and try to be an active agent of positivity. And that was great. And I really appreciated that professor kind of doing that. And I think that's something that I've seen replicated in smaller scales in other classes, but I think that's a great example of how some professors are able to handle this sort of politically charged environment.
Also, just from a student perspective, there are lots of different areas where you can get involved in those conversations and in that discourse if you're interested. We do have sort of representation of all political ideologies on campus, which is great because you do get to hear lots of different points of view, and that discourse is respectful and more from a listening approach instead of just sort of shouting into the void how you feel. What's really great is that you get those conversations, like Logan mentioned, in your classes. Also, sometimes maybe you'll just be at the dining hall table with your friends eating lunch and things will come up and you can chat about them. We also have some really great community discussions on campus. There's also a debate between our college Republicans and college Democrats just a couple of weeks ago before the Virginia election. So if you are interested in getting involved in those areas, there are all sorts of spaces on campus to do so. And that really allows for respectful and, I'd say, productive discourse, which is another great part of Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Bailey and Logan really covered that question pretty well, so I'll just echo a lot of what they were saying. Especially with what Bailey was saying, I feel like Richmond has really good representation of a lot of different political viewpoints, more so than either of the other places I've lived. I feel like in other places I've lived, there's been like a huge liberal bubble or a huge conservative bubble, and it's really quite even at Richmond, which has been really valuable in my classes. Because there's often people of all different viewpoints that are able to talk during discussions in class.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Bailey, I have a question specifically for you from Eric, and he would love to know a little bit more about the badminton club, and specifically, do you compete against other universities and colleges? And I'll also open it up too, if you, our other two panelists, want to talk about any other clubs and sports or anything, your experiences. But Bailey, if you want to kick us off with badminton.
All right, well, thank you so much for your question. First of all, the badminton team is very new to Richmond's campus. It was actually just started by a fellow admissions employee named Jake, actually, I think, right at the beginning of this semester. So it's really new, really exciting to see on campus. Right now, we haven't competed against any other colleges or universities yet. That is sort of in the woodwork. We're trying to get some tournaments happening against other schools, but we have had the opportunity to practice together. We've also just finished this last week. We had our first tournament and we had doubles and singles available. I think we had 8 doubles teams playing and 14 singles players, something like that. But it's a really fun thing for me to get involved in because I'd never played badminton before, and we have lots of beginners on the team, but we also have a lot of really skilled badminton players. So it is a really great environment, and also just club sports in general, intramural sports at Richmond are a really great way to establish connections and meet people you haven't met before. And that's definitely true for me with the badminton team because I've made lots of friends just over the past few weeks.
I will say that I just got added to the badminton group me like 2 days ago, and now Bailey's convinced me, and I guess I'll be going to badminton practice. So it is very new, but I'm excited about it as well.
Jake is really putting in the work because he also approached me trying to get to add me to the group me. My club, my main club is the Collegian. As a journalism major, we take our school paper very seriously. And that is really my main club interest, although I also might be joining the badminton crew due to one very eager colleague of mine, Jake Holmes. So yeah, I guess the badminton team might be pretty popular among admissions admission representatives pretty soon.
Excellent. I love it. I love the camaraderie and the recruitment going on here. We talked a lot about your guys' experience coming from Richmond, or from Virginia, sorry, I'm in Richmond mode now. Would love for you guys to talk a little bit about, what is it like going to a school with people from all over in the country and the world, especially when you kind of have that Virginia lens?
I think it's great. I mean, we're really international campus. It's always interesting to look at. We have a little sort of pamphlet that has like a map of where people are from. And there's a larger share of our students from the international community than from, I think, what we designate as the Midwest, which is like an interesting element in campus, that we have more people from around the world than, say, Chicago, which is saying nothing against the students from Chicago. It's just like, we really are pretty international, and we have a lot of different people with very, very different backgrounds. For one of my classes, international reporting, actually, one of our projects is to meet someone on campus who is from a different area and sort of do a profile on them. So it's really great to have a network of students from all over the world, truly all over the world, that you can sort of talk with and learn from and learn together.
Absolutely. I completely agree with Logan there. It's really fascinating to have people from all different areas of the world in your classes and in your friendship groups and maybe your badminton team. I don't know. But at least within my classroom setting, I'm a health studies major. So I study how healthcare is funded, organized, distributed healthcare systems, both within the US and all throughout the globe. And having international students in my classes has really helped sort of shape my vision of what healthcare looks like around the world, because we're not just learning, oh, in the UK, this is their healthcare system, this is how things are distributed, funded, etc. We actually have someone in the class who is from the UK who can speak from their personal experience. Also outside of the classroom, you just get to know people from all different backgrounds and lived experiences, which is really exciting and a really great part of being at Richmond with that strong international presence that we have.
I will say that I am actually from the Midwest. I moved to Virginia sophomore year of high school, so I resent the Midwest call out a little bit, but I'm from rural Minnesota originally. But one of my favorite stories to tell is about my roommate who is from Southern California and had never seen the snow before. And when it snowed the first time last year, she came running to my door at 8 a.m. and like tried to knock down my door and was like, "We have to build a snowman." And I was like, "This is not the kind of snow where you can build a snowman." And so it's just really fun to see all of these different experiences that people have. And she got so invested about the snow, and there are so many other people that have random stories like that. And so it's really fun to be with people from all over.
Excellent. I want to give a shout out to Sarah, who asked a question about marching band and color guard. I was a color guard nerd in high school, so I loved it. I just want to touch on that. I think Lauren answered it, but one of my favorite things about Richmond is that if there's a gap in what you're interested at Richmond, the school is so welcoming to starting something new or bringing a group to campus or a club. And so I think all of our panelists have kind of touched on this, but Richmond is a place where you get to shape your experience, and you get to there's so much excitement and professors and staff who want to help you do that stuff. So as we're talking about all the stuff that is available, and there is so much, also keep in mind that there's so much opportunity for you guys to have an impact on the school as well. That's my little spiel. I'll go back to asking questions now. Would love for you guys to touch a little bit on, what it's like living close to a city, but not in a city. So how often do you get downtown? What do you like to do in the city? Kind of what's that connection between campus and the city?
I love the city. I, because of the pandemic, decided to move off campus, just so in case anything happened, I could just still be in Richmond and in Virginia. Because my parents again moved. So I was like, I'm ready to be on my own. So I moved off campus. Nothing happened. It was great. I kept going to school. But it did let me see a different side of Richmond. I was in the museum district. I always like to describe the museum district as full of dogs and babies, just everywhere. which is great. It's like you feel like you're in somewhere cosmopolitan. There's a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, young, old, going to art museums, having picnics at the outside of art museums. I love the art museum, the Virginia Museum of Fine Art. It's fantastic. But it's really this really dynamic city that has a lot of personality. Personality you don't always see in other American cities. There's a distinct architecture. There's a distinct sort of street layout. You have really this unique city, which is great. And I love it a lot. And I go in all the time. Any chance to go in, I'm there. And it's really easy for me. I'll just get on my bike, ride my bike 15 minutes to the east, and I'm in the museum district at my old home. I actually would bike to school every day. So I love the city. It's meant so much to me, and it's something that I really have enjoyed exploring.
I like to say that Richmond or U of R has sort of a Goldilocks-ish location because it's not so close to the city or inside of the city where you can feel a little overwhelmed if you're like me, but it's not so far away that it's a college town feel where you feel like you're isolated. So what I like about being on campus is you can hop in the car and go 5 to 15 minutes away and you're downtown in the city of Richmond exploring places there. But also if you want to go somewhere else, a little more low key, a little more rural, perhaps you can get in the car and 10 to 15 minutes away, there are some pumpkin patches and things like that that you can check out in the fall. So it's really a best of both worlds because you get to experience the city and it's very close, and the university provides a lot of transportation options to get to those places. But also if you're not a huge city fan, you can enjoy everything on campus, or you can go to more secluded areas, which is why it has that perfect sort of in the middle location.
I feel like one thing that I always like to mention about Richmond, because I had no idea, is how much of like a foodie city it is. There is so much good food in Richmond, and I had no idea before coming here, like just how many restaurants there were going to be to try. And so many of them are really close to campus. So I always mentioned Carey Street is like a 5-10 minute drive off campus, and you're there, and then you can just wander around and there's a million restaurants. And my friends and I will go on a Friday and we'll just go wherever we can get in. Like they're all super busy, but you'll find somewhere. And then I just like living in a city because you can just go do random city stuff. Like this is a really nerdy story, but the other day my English major roommate was like, do you want to go to the Edgar Allan Poe Museum? And it was like a Thursday afternoon, and we went to the Edgar Allan Poe Museum because we were in the city of Richmond and that seemed like something we should do. So it's really nice, like Bailey said, to be on a campus that's a little bit more isolated from the city. It doesn't feel like a city school. I really wanted a campus where you felt like you were on a college campus and not in the middle of the city, but you can just go drive 20 minutes to Edgar Allan Poe Museum if you feel like it sometimes.
Excellent. And to plug the Poe Museum a little bit more, there is a cafe attached to it that I've heard is very good, and I'm very excited to try it. Excellent. So I think we're going to round out a little bit here, but would love to hear from each of you. Why Richmond? Just like, why did you come here?
So I touched upon it a little earlier. I did not go into my college process thinking Richmond was my school. I didn't think Virginia was where I was going to go, but I did, and I couldn't be happier. It was something that checked all my boxes and sort of was hiding right under my nose as sort of a Charlottesville kid. There's obviously a big school in Charlottesville, so it gets a lot of the attention. But that was sort of like my perception of Virginia schools were the big state schools. And they weren't for me, and I knew they weren't for me because I didn't want to go to a big school. And it took a while for me to sort of like get it back around to Richmond, but it is really a great place. It is it's just checking all my boxes, and something that was fantastic for me as a student and continues to be fantastic because I am here right now telling you guys how fantastic it is. So comes full circle, but I am very happy to be here. Very happy to be a Richmond graduate in 1.5 years after this last 2 weeks of classes. And I'm just thrilled at the choice I made.
My why Richmond is really, I'd say, a 3-part answer. So the first is the academic excellence that the university provides. We have many different things you can study, lots of opportunities for research. We also have something called the Richmond Guarantee, which is up to $4,000 guaranteed to every undergraduate student You could use that for research or internship opportunity that would otherwise be unpaid or underpaid. So that's definitely enticing. My second why Richmond is our incredible campus community that I mentioned earlier. It's really great to feel supported all the time and to see someone that you usually stand in the omelet line with in the mornings playing basketball on national television during March Madness. That's definitely really special. And then my third why Richmond is absolutely our beautiful campus. It's absolutely gorgeous. We have a beautiful lake that I wish you could see right now, but sadly I'm not down by the lake. But we were ranked #1 most beautiful campus by the Princeton Review last year. I'm a little biased, but I definitely do agree with their decision making there, because no matter where you are on campus, there's always something absolutely beautiful to catch your eye and maybe brighten your day a little bit.
Yeah, so I always start my why Richmond with the external, absolutely beautiful campus that you first see when you walk on campus. And what really drew me to it immediately is you walk around, especially this time of year. If you have a chance to come to Richmond in the fall, this is my absolute favorite time on campus because all of the leaves are so pretty and we have so many trees. And I was sitting by the lake for literally 4 hours today doing homework, and you're just right next to the lake and you get to do homework in a bright red chair because we're red and blue are our colors, and you look at the geese and the lake and the trees and it's so pretty. But then kind of internally, my why Richmond is definitely the people. And my professors have been so kind. And what really drew me here is when I came to an accepted students day at Richmond, one of the professors that I sat in on a mock class for sent me the world's longest email after class, just telling me how much he'd appreciated that I sat in on his class and how much he hoped that I came here. And I was just so touched that he remembered me out of all of the people that were sitting in on that class that day and wanted to reach out. And that has just continued here at Richmond with the professors. I have a professor who ran into me the other day, and she said, I was just talking to this other professor about you, and I hear that you're going to Sweden, and I have for abroad next semester, and I have all these recommendations for you. And I was absolutely shocked that these professors were talking about me, and that she knew about my life. And that's so true here at Richmond because it's such a small place and everyone knows each other. And that I've really loved that here.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Before I turn it over back to our lovely admissions folks here, I'll share quickly about why I picked Richmond. So for me, Richmond feels like home, and that's really the big thing. I remember when I was in high school touring colleges, I had no idea that UR existed, and I needed to fill a day in between 2 different colleges. I was like, oh, well, Richmond's on the way. I might as well just go there. Walked on campus, fell in love, and I felt like home. I always, to put the logic behind the feeling, I really love the leadership school. So I did get my degree in leadership and religion, which very squarely in the liberal arts. So, and now I work in alumni relations. So your major doesn't always have to lead directly to a career. But I love the leadership school. I love some of the stuff that like Bailey mentioned about the Richmond guarantee, that I really had options to go do whatever I wanted. And like Richmond was going to support that. And the people too is so important. Everyone I think here touched on that. My best friend was my randomly assigned freshman year roommate. We're still best friends. We just went to Greece for 2 weeks together. And so just like the people you meet here are just so incredible. It's so incredibly supportive here. When I graduated, I moved to Boston. I didn't know anyone for my job. And the very first thing I did was go to an alumni event and met so many people who just had so many recommendations for the city, got my phone number, would check in, would go out with me, just like wherever you are, you'll find spiders. And now I'm home again, and I'm so excited to be back. So that's a little bit of my why. So thank you to all of our lovely panelists. I always love continuing to hear about the current students' experiences because it changes so much, but also at the same time, not at all. So thank you guys, and I'll turn it back over to Rachel and Lauren now.
Yeah, thank you all so much. It was so fun to hear all of your stories. Amazing to hear. I mean, I get to see you all in person all the time, but it's so lovely to get you together and hear you share about Richmond and why it's so special to you. So I think that's really wonderful. Lauren mentioned earlier that we're going to shift gears a little bit and give you some of the nuts and bolts of the admission process. So whether you have applied, whether you are just looking at Richmond now as a junior or getting started with that application process. We want to give you some, some notes on what to look forward to in the admission process and also financial aid. So I'm going to share my screen, and then Lauren's going to kick us off with an overview of the admission process.
So yes, as Rachel mentioned, we do want to talk about the application process. Our application process isn't different for our in-state, out-of-state students. So really, no matter where you're coming from, these are the different things that we are looking for and looking at. So at Richmond, you can apply using the common application or the coalition application. We have no preference in which one you use. So if you're applying to a few different schools, feel free to just add us on to whichever application you are using. There is the essay within the Common App and Coalition app that's like the personal essay, goes to all the different schools. And then we also have an additional required essay called the Richmond question. We just changed the topics this year. It's been really fun to read a lot of new and exciting essay answers because we had the old topics for a few years. So this is, again, is a required essay that you will write so that we just get to know you a little bit better, because we feel like the essay is really helpful in that finding that fit and just helps us when reviewing your application, and you get to kind of have a conversation with us. We also look at your transcript. So we are a highly selective institution. So we do want to make sure that you are going to be academically successful when you do come to Richmond. So when reviewing that transcript, we are looking at all of the classes you're taking and all of the grades that you're getting. But we're looking at this within the context of your high school. So something else that we receive is this secondary school report that you'll see on this checklist. That's actually sent in from your school or college counselor. And it gives us an idea about the school that you're going to. It lets us know the amount of AP classes or IB courses. Are dual enrollment the only type of higher level? Do you not have higher level classes? It just helps us be able to better assess your transcript and your rigor when we're reviewing your application. So we're not comparing your application from a school in Charlottesville to a school in Connecticut or Pennsylvania. We are just looking at you within the context of your own school and the classes that are being offered to you. We also require one letter of recommendation, typically from your school or college counselor, but from any school official will do. I typically recommend that you submit at least 1 or 2 additional letters, so a total of 2 or 3 recommendation letters, especially if you go to a larger school. Maybe your school or college counselor doesn't know you that well, or you have a favorite teacher or a coach or a mentor. Maybe you're really involved in theater or band and you want to have your advisor write a recommendation. We don't care so much about what the title of the person is. We just want to know about your story. So be strategic in picking people to write recommendation letters for you, thinking about people who can really talk to your story and let us in on your character, your academic ability, just really get to speak to your story. For any seniors in the room that are thinking about applying, you do have until January 1 to apply to Richmond for our regular decision or early decision 2 deadlines for this academic year. We are test optional for our seniors, so you do not need to submit an SAT or ACT to be considered for admission or for merit aid. If you are thinking about submitting a test, we do super scores. So for both the SAT and ACTs, if you take them multiple times, we'll take those different sections and combine them to give you the highest composite score possible. For any juniors or maybe sophomores in the room, we have not made a decision about our testing policy after this year quite yet. We're hoping to have a decision come springtime, so be on the lookout for that. I'm sure we'll be sending you emails. It will be plastered over our website. So if you are thinking about applying for next year, we just haven't made a decision quite yet about our test policy, but for our seniors, we are completely test optional this year. And the great thing about this checklist, anyone trying to scribble it down or take a picture, once you apply to Richmond, you actually gain access to a Spider portal. We just did some updates to our Spider portal, so it's very fun. We have trivia that changes weekly. But the great thing about our portal is it has a checklist of all these different items that are required, and it will update in real time as we receive these things. So you'll be able to really check in on your application and make sure that we're receiving all of the appropriate items on time. We also have a financial aid checklist, which I'm sure Rachel will get to in a moment. but all of these application checklist items will be in your portal, so you don't have to memorize it, and you can check in to see how your status is going. Okay, so once we gather all of those materials and you submit your application, what happens? At Richmond, we review applications holistically, which for any juniors or seniors in the room, I'm sure you've heard many times. But at Richmond, I really do feel that we review applications differently. We spend a ton of time digging into the application. Remember that additional required essay that we have, because we spend so much time reading those essays and really looking at the fit of a student. We want to make sure you're going to be a good fit for us, but that we're going to be a good fit for you. We're really looking for students who are going to come on our campus, make positive change, make us better. As Logan was talking about with his interactions with an admissions staff member and talking about ways that the institution has grown, that's something we want to continue. We want students who are going to be change agents on our campus, and ways that we kind of dictate that or figure out if you're going to be someone that's doing that is looking at your essays, looking at your involvement. So you'll see a sampling of some things that our most recently admitted class, what they were involved with during their time in high school. So we really want students who are involved in their current environment and in their current community, so that we can kind of assess how you would be here at Richmond. So looking at those different factors, reviewing holistically also means that we don't have any minimum GPAs or SAT, ACT scores. We are just looking at the entire person because we really value you. We know you are more than those numbers. We know that life has happened. We've all been living through a pandemic. So we understand that if you're a junior or senior, maybe your 10th grade dipped a little bit because you had to transition to virtual school, or your extracurriculars might not look exactly like you had hoped they would. We totally get that. That's a holistic admission process. We're living it with you. So we really take that into consideration when reviewing your application. So looking at all of those different things, we really strive to enroll a diverse class into our student body. So this screenshot kind of gives you an idea of what our students look like, where they're coming from. This is our class of 2025. So these are our first year students that we have on campus right now. And you will see 16% of our students from last year, or that applied last year, that are currently first year students, came from Virginia. So 13% overall, but last year we had 16%, which was the highest represented state or Commonwealth in our case, which is really exciting. But the one thing that I really want to point out on this screen is of the 890 students that we enrolled, they came from close to 700 high schools. So that means that there's a high likelihood that no matter if you are coming from Virginia or New Jersey or California or Texas, there's a high likelihood that you're going to be one of two coming from your high school to Richmond. So we don't have huge clusters of students coming from high schools to Richmond, which is really great because you're getting to meet all new people just as everyone else is meeting all new people. You get to hear from a lot of different backgrounds, get to hear from a diverse perspective. And as our students were mentioning, there is so many different viewpoints represented, different walks of life, which we're so proud of at Richmond because it really will help mold you into these global citizens that we hope that you'll be when you go into the world and you graduate from Richmond. So now we're going to transition to talk a little bit about financial aid.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. I think one of the hidden kind of joys that I've had with the COVID pandemic and people's activity lists is just been seeing all the different ways they've gotten involved. You know, I was reading an application of a student that volunteers now for the National Archive transcribing documents. So it's been, so whatever you did to fill those times, like, please let us know. I think it is so interesting, whether you're using Duolingo to learn a new language or, you know, volunteering in your neighborhood. It's just been so fun to see, which is nice. But I do want to touch on a little bit of financial aid generally, but then also specifically for our Virginians, because we do have a couple programs for Virginia residents. So one thing I should note, though, is that we are a private institution. So the rate of tuition, room and meals at Richmond is the same for all of our students, regardless of residency. When we're looking at applications, though, we are holistic. We're taking everything into consideration, but the one thing we are not considering is a family's financial ability to pay. So for our domestic students, we are need blind in the admission process, but we're one of just a handful of schools across the country that also promises to meet 100% of demonstrated need. So what that demonstrated need is the cost of attendance. So it's tuition, room, meals, and then other indirect costs that come up with college travel to and from campus. The cost of books, those little incidentals that add up over 4 years. That's the total cost of attendance. The demonstrated need is found when we subtract your estimated family contribution. So we get that number when students fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So FAFSA is probably something that universally, at least here in the United States, we're a little bit more accustomed to. The CSS profile is something that institutions that have larger amounts of award use to kind of better understand your family's current financial picture. So the CSS profile, you can find that on College Board's website. So you fill out those 2 application forms, and our wonderful financial aid office does their magic and then determines, like I said, that estimated family contribution, that's subtracted from the total cost of attendance. And that is what we mean when we say demonstrated need. Now, we meet need through merit aid, we have aid through merit aid, and we have need-based aid. So we're focusing right now particularly on need-based aid because, like I said, we have a couple programs that are specifically for Virginians. One is Richmond's Promise to Virginia. And so in an effort to make sure that we're supporting our Commonwealth residents, particularly those who are most in need, Richmond promises to meet the full cost of attendance for Virginia residents whose family income is $60,000 or less in a no loan package. So what that means is if your family income is $60,000 or less a year, we are going to meet 100% of the cost of attendance. So we're going to make sure that Richmond can be as accessible as possible. And we're also going to do that with no loans. So no federal will meet that, we'll meet that aid with our own grant money, which is really wonderful. And so you can work with our financial aid office to see if this is something that you qualify for, but we'll notice that through the applications with FAFSA and CSS profile. Another thing that is open up to all Virginians that I think just is really important to point out is VTAG, or the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant. So this is open for students that are residents of Virginia that plan to attend a private school. So this includes Richmond, but it also includes other private schools that you might be looking at. This year, it's estimated to be about $4,000, and you just need to apply for VTAG annually, and it's generally by the end of July. And there's more information on SHEV's website. You see that right here. It's the State Council for Higher Education in Virginia. And lastly, for students that attend a City of Richmond public school. So you see the list of RPS schools there: Armstrong, Franklin Military, George Wythe, Huguenot, John Marshall Open, Rich Community, and Thomas Jefferson. This also includes the specialty schools, Maggie Walker and Code RVA. But Richmond, as a school that's meeting the full demonstrated need of our students, for RPS specifically, we'll do that through grant and scholarship aid solely, so no loans meeting that demonstrated need. Sorry if you hear my dog whining in the background, but those are our Richmond specific, but also Virginia specific financial aid packages. So And lastly, I just wanted to put on the screen a list of your Virginia recruiters. And so we have 17 admission officers in the Office of Admission, and we travel the world. But we do have a good portion of our staff dedicated to recruiting our wonderful Virginians. And so you see our contact information up there. It's also on our website. So I really encourage you to take a look and reach out with any questions. Yeah, I'll pass it back to Lauren for closing.
Yes, thank you all so much. And I did just see a question come through asking about if annual parental income is a tad bit higher than 60,000, would a student still qualify for the Virginia Promise? So Virginia Promise is pretty strict about it being right at 60,000 or less. But again, as Rachel mentioned, we do meet 100% of demonstrated need. So if you made a tad over 60,000, whatever that demonstrated need is, we would meet 100% of that. So really want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We will definitely be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, whether you are from Virginia or not from Virginia. We're happy to talk with you. I do want to give a special shout out to Maggie for moderating, and to Bailey, Acacia, and Logan for being our panelists tonight, and to my wonderful colleague Rachel. So thanks so much for joining, and have a great night.
Thank you all.